away you go.
This is a question for Liam. So recently, Tom Shaw has signed a new contract. How happy were you to get over the line, and what Tom's long-term goals?
Yeah, well, Tom is part of Michael's coaching team, so I'm going to pass this on to Michael. Yeah, Tom's been a huge part of our club. Obviously, as you know, he was a huge part of the academy for a number of years. We then we trialled our first ever loan head coach situation when Tom went out to Gainsborough, and then as part of Michael's appointment, we obviously sponsored Tom and wanted him to be very much part of that. But yeah, we're very proud of Tom. Just like players, he's someone that we've developed and supported, and you know, by the end of this contract with Tom, that'll take him to nearly 11 years at the football club. So yeah, really proud. But as much as that said, you know, he works for Michael. He's part of Michael's coaching team. So as much as we as club want to sponsor him or to play our role in that, it has to work for Michael. So I think it's best that Michael answers.
I think he said most of it. Tom's aspirations would be to be a head coach. So it's important that we help him on that journey as much as the players. But the reason for securing Tom for longer is the same as a player. So you want to keep good staff in the building, but you also want to keep good players in the building. So that's what we try to do. We've got a great group of staff, not just the coaching staff, the medicals team, the physical team. They're brilliant. We work hard for those people to come in the building, and then sometimes you have to work hard to keep them in the building.
Thanks, Tamara. Right, who's next? Young man down here.
Question for Jez. When you were on the Evan presentation, you mentioned personal terms. Can you just explain a bit more what is included in personal terms? It seems like a one-liner, but I'm sure there's more to it. And is there any outliers in player transfers that comes across when personal terms are brought up that is story-worthy?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So personal terms, you're right, it's a couple of words, but it encompasses a lot. So it's length of contract, and you know, look, everybody has their own opinion, but when we're signing an asset, which we would see a young player as, we'll always want to try and get them on the longest contract possible. So we have an aspiration for those being like 4-year contracts, because we know there'll be bumps in the road sometimes. We know it takes a little bit of, like for Ivan, he's got to adapt to a different country. There'll be other young players, don't want to tempt fate, but look at George's progress this year, you look at Rob Street from the start of last year to the start of this year, so we want to give them time to develop and also retain some asset value, because by the time their contract expires, obviously we have no value for the player if they want to leave to join another club. Then we have a pretty well documented, really tight wage structure here, which is important, because it'd be really easy to suddenly pay everybody 500 quid a week more, but no one becomes better, it just becomes more expensive. So we fight really, really hard, and we discuss that a lot, how we keep our wage structure fair, competitive, but at a level where, let me absolutely assure you, if people are coming to this club, they're well paid, but they're not coming for that. They're definitely coming for another reason. And then there's every bonus that you can think about, and if you listen to Talk Sport in the morning, and you listen to Simon Jordan, he had a book that's quite funny, because he talks in a chapter about the negotiation with an agent, and you know, you send them how many years and then what their wage is, and then you've got to pay them if they win, and you have to pay them if they play, and if they're a centre forward you have to pay them if they score, and then you have to pay an agent, and by the way you're paying that, not the agent, even though he's just negotiated that deal, and that is it. So it's a raft of bonuses, but again we have those uniform across the squad, so whatever that appearance money might be, whether it's clean sheet bonus, whether it's goal bonus, there'll be some provision for promotion, there'll be some provision for the other thing that we never want to talk about. Then can I go in a tiny bit deeper? Yeah. So for example, and this is where I think we're smart as a football club, and that comes from this young man and Liam and the board, of if you can get a little wins off every single contract, you're multiplying that by 24 players, and that can help you financially. So it might be, I don't know, appearance money is league only, not cups. that save us some money. We don't double pay because they get a win bonus if they win in the cup as well, you know, so little things like that. And then the big one for us is promotion, because a lot of clubs, you'll see players promoted that didn't kick a ball, didn't get involved, weren't there, sometimes they're even out on loan when the club got promoted, but everything will double, say for example if they went from League One to the Championship, whereas we have a criteria where they've got to play a certain number of games at the next level for that to be triggered. So that gives us, like, when that moment arrives and we get there, it gives us so much more flexibility in being able to assess the squad, because otherwise you've got a group of players who may have done really well to get you from League One to the Championship, but you might have to change that squad. So those little details are really, really important, I think, for a football club to maximise their budget and plan for every scenario in the future. So they will be common things that you'd look at when negotiating with players. But ultimately for me, it does make the job easier because we have so many common clauses that we won't change. We have things that are common across the entire squad that we won't make an exception for. So ultimately, it is really about length of contract and the basic wage, rather than having to negotiate 10, 15, 20 different clauses every time.
Right, who's next?
Sorry, Alan, just one thing Jez mentioned was Simon Jordan. And also, we've spoken about agents' fees. So in 2004, Simon Jordan was chairman of Crystal Palace. They were negotiating to sign Tim Cahill. He wouldn't pay the agent's fee. Everton came in, signed Tim Cahill. They finished in the top 4, ahead of Liverpool. And Crystal Palace got relegated. So some agents' fees are worth paying.
And look, last thing, but the reality is if you don't pay agents' fees, you're not going to get players. Our job is to differentiate between what's right, fair and reasonable and what's ridiculous.
I have one while we're on money. Not just Lincoln City, but clubs have undisclosed transfer fees. What's the logic or the reasoning behind that?
I think it just allows clubs obviously to keep it quiet what they're paying, and maybe other clubs don't know what that club then has the ability to pay for another player. So, Jovan, for instance, I mean, the various fees out there that we paid for him, but nobody really knows exactly what we paid, how the deal was structured, so that might not count against us when we're trying to sign Oscar or Ivan or Josh. Yeah, look, I mean, it's a difficult one. You can say that most in the industry actually do have an idea. But I think most clubs believe that it's better that the fees are undisclosed. I think in the financial statements we do try and provide as much information as possible so the fans do have an idea what we've paid or sold players for.
Fair enough.
I don't know, Clive or Liam, under what scenario do you envisage Lincoln ever making a profit? And a second question on that, why do people invest in Lincoln City?
The second question I think is easier because they're crazy. Will we ever make a profit? No, I don't think it's absolutely impossible. I think, yeah, things have to change. I think we do have to get a better deal, a new redistribution deal from the Premier League, and that's obviously going to only be done on condition that there are stricter financial controls. You won't get more money from the Premier League if there are not stricter financial controls. Now, we probably caused some problems for some fans by saying that our budget was 19th in the league last season, but last season was absolutely crazy. Player wages increased by more than 50%. And I think that has finally got certainly club owners in League One talking now amongst themselves. We have a WhatsApp group, we have monthly meetings, and there really does seem to be a determination to try and bring player wages under control. It just doesn't help anybody to keep on paying essentially the same players, just more and more. You know, we were 12th in the 23-24 season, 12th highest budget. So the club that we believe that had the 12th highest budget in 24-25, more than 50% higher than us, actually got relegated. They didn't have better players than we had the previous season. They just paid crazy wages. So I think in time there is a real chance that reality will dawn and maybe not making profits, but at least be very close to break even and being sustainable.
Who's next?
Obviously, squad depth's really good now, and as we approach an international break, would we consider still fulfilling the Bradford fixture but taking 2,000 plus away fans on a Saturday in autumn rather than it getting rearranged for a Tuesday night in January?
Yeah, good question. And look, 100% there's a lot of that thinking going on. One of the things we wanted to do at the end of the transfer window was sign another full international player to give us the choice, because the rules are this, that if you're an under-21 international, you have to appear on the team sheet a requisite number of times, which Ivan will do. If you're a full international, you don't, there's no qualification, you just automatically can use a call up to call games off if there's 3 in total. So that discussion is live. You know, like if we don't have injuries and we have availability for the rest of the squad, there is a massive argument for keeping the game on, playing the game, because hopefully we continue to progress in the cups. Not sure when the fourth, are we in the 4th or 5th round of the Carabao? 3rd. So I'm not sure when the 4th round is, because we've got quite an easy home tie next week. No, but what tends to happen in these situations is you might call a game off because you're missing 1 player, and then by the time you rearrange the game, you're missing 3 or 4 other players because of injury. So I think we wanted to give ourselves the option, the choice, but we'll look at like the availability of the squad, and if we've got good availability, there's a massive argument for playing the game.
Passing it on.
This one's mainly for Michael. When we sign players like Ivan, what is your process and how easy is it to then integrate a new player that doesn't speak a lot of English into the squad?
Yeah, great question. So when you sign the foreign players, it takes a bit more time, but we integrate him in the same way that you probably saw with the recruitment presentation. Not as long presentation, but we'll try and do things like translate stuff into Ukrainian. We might have a presentation with him, Tom Shaw sitting there with Google Translate, but we're also outside trying to teach him certain terms and words and terminology that we want. Yeah, but he's got a habit in a minute just saying yes, 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 top. So like you get to know what he's understanding by his behaviour as well. So it's not impossible to coach. You know, I think football's a common language, isn't it? All over the world, there's a lot of things that other nationalities use that we use. So yeah, we'll slowly teach him, but he's got to get his English lessons. But he's integrated socially, unbelievably. I think his first words, he walked into the gym and went, "All right, boys." And the lads were like, "Who's this?" Yeah, they've took to him really well, and you can see like Jack Moylan and some of the younger lads, they've took to him really well. So we're making him feel comfortable, like any player really. But he's obviously made some big moves. So yeah, that's how we try and do it.
We do have a few questions here from people who can't be with us tonight, and one of those is from Simon. What's happening with the Lincoln Women's Project? They seem to still be Lincoln United and Lincoln City.
Yeah, good question. So, just to go back to the absolute aims of this, we fundamentally believe it's our role as the Premier Football Club in the county, as part of our pathways. If you're born male or female in the City of Lincoln, County of Lincolnshire, you have an equal opportunity through development pathways semi-elite into an elite coaching environment. That is our commitment. Truthfully, the funding is different. So from the academy funding that we get through the Premier League and what happens in the male pathway, it's obviously very different in the women and girls side. So there's an element where we've got to fund and resource that, but equally, the scales are slightly different. So if I just start with that as the absolute aims and objectives. The reason why we joined forces and created Lincoln Women and worked with Lincoln United is fundamentally keeping it really simple. There isn't the talent pool within the city, within the county, if we're going to represent the county, where you've got two teams playing at step 4, teams playing at step 5, teams like all we're doing is bidding and competing against ourselves. I mean this in the right spirit, but at that level, a lot of the women's game is partly social. So players go in groups. That's that's not that's the model. That's how it tends to work. So effectively, all what you're getting is across numbers of teams. We were just spreading our resource and spreading that across the county. So the whole aim of the partnership is that we have a really well thought out pathway. It supports male or female development within the city, within the county, and that we can work together in order to do that. One thing I'll share with you tonight, the intention was to have a tier 4, a tier 5 and a tier 6 team. We've abandoned the idea of having a tier 5 team. The reason being is a few players have moved on, and basically when you looked at the tier 5 teams, some of the players at tier 4 teams, some of the players moved up and elsewhere, and then equally players moved up from the tier 5 team and are now playing at tier 4. So we see that as progress. So what we are going to operate is we're going to be operating with a tier 4 team and a tier 6 team, which actually we think is sustainable and is providing the right pathways. Then the only quirk is it took us a little bit of time to work out the governance structure. So for this year, when we wrote to the FA and said, can we deal with a name change or can we look at it, they weren't very happy with that. I completely understand and respect the reasons why. So we're probably, to the outside world, it looks a little bit clunky, but actually internally we know exactly who we are, what we're trying to achieve, and we just want to be really proud of what we're going to develop over the next few years. And quite frankly, we're not precious whether that's as Lincoln United, Lincoln City, Lincoln Women. It just needs to be about the best and the fairest pathway. So that's our aims. We've got some things right, we've got some things wrong, but our North Star is male or female, equal opportunity, and that's what we're committed to.
James.
My name's Carla. Hamilton has got a point and they're winning the championship and going ahead on the Moses.
Now, if he's explained that to me correctly, what he's actually asking is we all know we're aiming for the championship. Where are we in that aim? How close to the aim of getting up there are we?
Cheers, James. Thanks for that question. It's a good question, thanks mate. I think we are developing. I think what you can see is that it takes time. So when you look at the squad and the way we keep developing the squad, it's took quite a few windows. So this is never one window, 2 windows, 1 season. I think what we're trying to do is keep growing in the right way while chasing down, if you like, the teams in front of us. And I think we've done that over the last few windows. And you talk about the squad depth, but also the quality of the players. And whilst we're doing that, we know we've got to sell players, move players. So it's massively our aim. I think everybody in the building wants to achieve that, James. No more than you, I think, mate. But we definitely want to do it. But we're not going to put everything at risk in the short term to do it. That's not how I see it. That's not how the club sees it. But yeah, for sure. That's why we're trying to not make days like Plymouth as hard.
James, what he's trying to say is that we should be playing championship football in August 2026. It was just long-winded, that's all.
Right, now, given what we've just experienced in the last couple of hours, or hour and a half, or however long it was, here's a question from Spencer. Spencer says, I really enjoyed listening to Jez alongside John Holm on commentary at Bolton Wanderers. Are there any plans for him to do it again, or would anyone else on the panel like to give it a go?
No, but he was brilliant that day.
Be tricky getting Michael to do it, I think. I think we want him concentrating. Yeah, I didn't want to do it. I got nudged by the gentleman to my far left. Probably a bit of payback for the stuff that you heard before. Yeah, the tricky thing was the end, because I think you're supposed to speak, not turn your mic off, because you're going to swear a lot. Look, my view with, like, genuinely with all these things, whether it's transfer deadline day going on with the Stacey West guys, whether it's tonight, whether it's that, is our job is to try and inform you as much as we possibly can of what we're trying to do. And you won't agree with it all, and it won't always look like what we're trying to do is what we are doing, but our job is your football club, so our job is to try and be open, transparent, and try and explain everything that we're thinking and trying to do. So for that reason, I did enjoy it. No, if there's plans to do it many times again, not saying I wouldn't do it once or twice, I think you'd get very, very bored of me if I did it many more times than that. But our genuine aim all the time with these type of events, with other stuff that we do, is genuinely to try and, if you want, open the gates or show you what goes on behind the scenes, and try and inform you as much as possible, and try and give you as much information as to what we're trying to do, because that's, football's an invasion game. There's two different teams both trying to impact the game, and therefore what the other team does, especially like on the day that we play Bolton, really, really, really high quality football team, that impacts what you're trying to do. I had a brilliant meeting with Michael and the coaching staff this afternoon. We did a little sort of review of where we are, where individuals are, what it feels like and looks like, sort of whatever it is, 8 games in. And there's growing belief in the building that we can do something. But there'll be tough days, it's football, yeah? The margins are small. At the minute in almost every game, apart from Wigan, we've scored first. And the Wigan game, we started really well, and that was probably a little bit of a punch on the nose. It took us 20 minutes to recover from, and in that period of time was a rocky spell, but there are moments that you have to get through as a team. So as much as it's technical and tactical and there's a plan, part of it is character and creating that culture, and that's what Michael does with the coaching staff every single day on the training pitch. So long-winded answer as well, sorry.
Right, who's next? I'll go over here first and I'll come to you.
This is one for Michael, really. I mean, obviously, excellent start to the season in terms of results. Looking at the stats and visually as well, we're consistently below 40% possession. Does that concern you in the long term, in terms of fatigue for the players and our aspirations to go higher? We're sort of on the back foot a bit too much, or are you comfortable with that in terms of we create
I think
turnovers?
with all the elements of the game, you try and improve. So it'll be wrong with me to say that we're not looking at that. I will say one thing: like 9 out of the 10 games or something, we've scored first. So last week when Man City played and they scored first, they had 30% possession against Man United at the end of the game. So there's inevitable, when you score first with human beings, that they want to see out, they want to drop off. Doesn't mean that's what we want all the time, but I don't think that one stat is ever concerning. So when we did the night about all the different stats, we have lots of different stats we look into. So like ball efficiency is very good for us. So actually with the ball, we're efficiency when we have it, because we want to be a fast and forward team, is very good. But there's always loads of different elements we want to improve on. We could argue we want to improve on getting more corners, because we haven't had enough this year. So that's part of it. But yeah, for sure, we look at it. We look at everything in minute detail, why it's happening, how we can improve it, even to the extent where we're learning all the time about the players, the group we've got, and that's why I'm not wedded to one single system or one single shape. Is trying to get the best out of the players. So yeah, is it concerning? No, it's part of the job to try and improve over time. But there are stats that we want to improve on all the time. Possession isn't on its own just one stat, but of course if we improve possession, we can improve chances, we blah blah blah. So yeah, you'll be seeing the things that we're working on behind the scenes for sure.
Thank you.
A question for Liam probably. I just wondered how hard it was to turn down the money that was offered for Rob Street. Been as though the club's, you know, it's not a bottomless pit for money. Was it a hard decision or was it?
No, and I think maybe without talking specifically about Rob, I think the one thing that this club does really well, and that's not from me, that's from Clive, the board, is that we have real structures and there's real strategies, and we stick to what that looks like. So regardless of Rob, the offer, whatever was happening, there's a real clear plan of what we needed to do in the transfer window, how we needed to execute, and quite frankly, we weren't going to be seduced, you know, or something that would take us so far off course, you know, because of that moment in time. What I will say is, like, quite honestly, in the past, we've turned. There was a period of time where we actually, as we were developing as a club, we turned down several offers for players, and that then didn't move forward and materialise for a range of different reasons. Sometimes injuries, sometimes how they run their contract down, sometimes various other elements. So I think the best thing that I can assure you guys really is that, you know, whilst there's been learning that's taken place, what we never then do, and Clive's brilliant at this, is then we never overcorrect just because one thing doesn't go right, that then the next time something happens, then you know, there's almost like a reflex reaction, and then you go polar opposite and go completely the other way. Everything's always balanced, everything's always you know, rational, and it is always looking, sorry, this is one of those corny terms I get in trouble for, but it is always looking at the macro, it's always looking at the bigger picture. So effectively, to sell too many assets within one transfer window, to sell players that are predominantly at this period of time going to play in the same position, at that point you're asking far too much from Michael and from the coaching staff. So if you want complete honesty, forget the figures. It was just never ever considered, and the conversations that myself and Jez were having on the phone, like, there wasn't one bid, there was several from several clubs. It was just like the player's not for sale, and he's going nowhere, and that was quite clear and consistent. And I think that's the best thing that Clive and the board give us, that we are able to be clear and consistent. If you speak to some of our colleagues at other football clubs, what they think at Saturday at 2:30 and then what they think at Saturday at 6 o'clock can be two different things. And I think the biggest gift that we have as an exec and the team that is day-to-day responsible for running it is that we're just utterly consistent in our behaviours, and just because something comes in that might want to, you know, might seduce you, like, quite frankly, it was just never considered, because it would almost quite catastrophic, but it'd be so far off plan for what we're trying to achieve, you know, almost the figures was, you know, almost irrelevant, and I think that's the, you know, hopefully gives you assurances that we're not sat there waiting for an offer to come in and flicking the coin going, is that right, is it wrong, that there's just far more planning and, you know, long-term view, boring things like depth chart, squad planning that all go into it, that just, you know, quite frankly, just never made it a consideration.
He's ignoring me.
Sorry.
I'm heading towards you.
Just getting back to the early part of the evening, the signing of the Ukrainian player Ivan. Did anyone on the coaching staff or from the club actually see him play, or was he signed purely on the statistics?
Yeah, just to be really, really clear, so the data is the filter for us. So the data just creates a list of players that then we watch. So Matt and Toby, back of the room, spend their daytimes being head teachers and spend their evening watching Ukrainian under-21 footballers for us. Then Joe probably watched 12, 15 games. Then each of the coaching staff got a package of games to watch as well. We were able to watch him playing in 2 different countries and for the Ukrainian under-21 team. So yeah, we watched him extensively. We'd never ever sign a player from data. What data does is filters thousands into a few and then allows us to go and watch those players.
Michael,
This is a question for you.
Oh.
So earlier on this year, as part of the John O'Gaunt's tour, somebody, not myself, asked you a question. Your answer was, this is a selling club. So my question to you is, do you still feel that that's the same? Do you feel the same about that question?
Well, I think the question might be about the players moving. So I think you've seen it this summer. So we want to develop players and we want to move players. So we sell players all the time. So I don't know. Yeah, it's exactly the same answer. We don't, but we're not doing it on a whim like with Rob Street. We're not doing it just for that moment. We want to develop the players, get them into a point where they go with us in a team and try and get to the championship, or exactly what we've done with the big man Jovan. And it's fantastic for everybody. It's fantastic for us, it's fantastic for the club, it's fantastic for recruiting players to come in and see what they can do. So in that sense we're a selling club, but most clubs are, aren't they? Lower down the pyramid there's probably only 6 clubs that don't have to sell, which is Liverpool, Man City, and all the big clubs.
I mean, Suarez left Liverpool, Ronaldo left Man United.
I miss Jovan. He was my favourite.
It's okay, you'll find another.
Just to add to that, I do think, I know it's boring because it's PSR and stuff like that and people just want to watch football, but all the best clubs have to trade, even the very, very biggest clubs. That's the rules of football almost, is becoming in the Premier League like that. They have to do that, and Liam's so right. Like we're fortunate, we're blessed because we have a board and ownership that don't compel us to do so every time we get an offer. So for us, we can make a judgment call. Is it the right club for them to go to? Is it the right moment? Where is it in the curve in their development? With Rob's situation, 1 out of 4 year in a contract. So what else have we done in that window? But ultimately, like we will trade our way up if you want, because if we do this well, we'll sell players, we'll reinvest, we'll keep raising the bar, and that's what we're trying to do in every transfer window. So I think selling becomes an enabler rather than something to look at as a negative.
Thank you.
Michael, what are the future goals for the club this year with big games coming up like Chelsea and Luton?
Beat them. Yeah, I think I know it must bore everybody on the media, but we generally do, like every game we try and win. I know people say we look like we're trying to draw away, like we're not. We're trying to win every game. The lads go out there, I can't explain how good the group, our characters, the players, we work. You've seen how much work goes into recruitment, how much we pride ourselves on getting good players with good character in the building. Good experience, but good characters is the most important thing. And we generally go out there to give every game a good go. Sometimes it doesn't look like we are, sometimes it doesn't look great, but the reality is we've got a great group of players that are really playing for the badge, and I think that's the most important thing when you bring people into the building. They care about Lincoln, they care about the club themselves, and they want to improve, and they want to keep winning games. And I think when you can build that in a team, it doesn't matter what team you are, does it, in your work or whatever you do, we're trying to build something special, that's the thing. And let's have a go at Chelsea.
Right, we've got about 10 minutes, so anybody else? Well, while you're having a think, Theo is a big fan of Dom Jeffries, and he wants to know when we're liable to see him back.
Yep, Dom's been, obviously had his operations when he came in, but Dom was superb last season. For a young man, again, that we brought into the building from League Two. I thought he had a great season. You know, you could play him anywhere. He's such a good footballer, but his intensity, the way he plays the game. He's obviously recovering from his op. He's back on the grass, which is good news. Probably end of October, we'll start to see him with the team. November-ish, depending on how well that goes, you should start to see him be in contention for a position wherever that might be. So he's not far away. He's been another, the injured players again, like it's a tough gig being injured for so long, because you have to come in the building every day, 9 o'clock, gym, get shouted at a little bit by the medical team for working harder in all weathers. So it's the worst thing about being a pro footballer is being injured, as you know, because they just love playing. But Dom's a monster, so is Jack Moylan, so is, you know, the younger lads. So we'll get him back fit and we'll get him back raring to go.
The disciplinary record is quite a good point, actually. Is there anything that we have done specifically this season which has tilted that, or is it just consistently circumstantial? Because how long can this go on where it's just circumstantial, and when do we have to start looking inwards?
I think when you ask a group of players to play in a certain way and be aggressive and what we want to see, run hard, they sometimes make mistakes, and there's sometimes, so that's one thing. I think the bit that we are nailing down, and we invest in this with psychologists and other areas, is like the, what do we call it, dissent. So we have to improve on that. But then you look at the red cards and you think they could happen over, you can't look at it in like it's a problem, because they could happen in 46 games over all 46, or they can happen all at once. So when I look at the red cards, I think maybe one unavoidable, maybe, but the others are probably not. So it's something that you have to be balanced with, because there's no stretch of the imagination. We are not a dirty team. You know, when you look at those 7 yellow cards in that game was not even dirty. You know, there was no elbows, there was no nothing. So I think it's always within context of the individual game that I have to look at it. But there is areas where we can improve as well. Like, you know, not many times I would say the referee wins or loses the game. So we have to keep looking. But again, it's something as a head coach you have to be mindful of when you're, you know, building a team and how you want to play and managing the referees and all that sort of stuff. Lots going on in a game.
Question here from Sarah. How will the Football Governance Bill affect City?
Yeah, so Football Governance Act, so it's now law. Very quickly, we're now into a process where there is effectively a 2-year period where there is what's called a State of the Game report. So what the Office of the Regulator is doing is going out there, is speaking to clubs, is speaking to leagues, is speaking to various different entities, and effectively, if we want to be brutally honest about it, saying, we maybe don't believe your propaganda and the stuff that you're putting out there, so we're going to go and get a test of that for ourselves, and then effectively, hopefully what comes on the back of that is with law and with the ability to then influence a range of things. We're constantly still told that football is being expected to get a football-led solution, which is quite interesting, because when you're the EFL, you know, going into a fight with the Premier League, you know, you've got a cocktail stick and they've got a machete. So, you know, it's a completely, you know, it's not a fair negotiation, or it's not a fair fight. I think one of the things that, you know, that we've got to look at as custodians of football, we've got a wonderful football pyramid where promotion, relegation, you know, you look at Luton Town, who I believe they were the first team to miss out on being in the Premier League, weren't they? They should have been in the Premier League, but were relegated in '92, and they've been all the way down to the National League or the Conference, all the way back up to the Premier League, and they're our opponents at the weekend. And that, what a wonderful football pyramid that we have. So I think the biggest challenge that we have is when you're in charge of a football club, you know, your job is almost to take a slice at that moment in time and vote or act in a way that is benefiting that club. And, you know, who is it that's responsible for looking after the total ecosystem and trying to find a better way. So hopefully the Football Governance Act will give us that. Hopefully what it will rely, or help won't rely, you know, people like Clive doing unbelievably selfless acts underpinning and supporting a club, whilst it will always welcome and support investment. Hopefully it's just not at a level that is so disproportionate. You know, when you look at the football club last year, we put more, or the investors put more money in than the fans, in order to keep this going. And when you have that, that is just, you know, that's no slight on the fans. That's just showing how crazy that, you know, you can have a stadium with, what, 9,006 our average attendance was last year, yet it requires more money from investors than it does from the income that we're able to generate, and we still have the 17th place budget in the division. So I think that shows you how crazy the game's got and it's out of kilter. So I guess the shorter answer would be, hopefully it brings the game closer together. I don't think it's about absolutely levelling the playing field, by the way. You know, there should be big clubs, there should be small clubs, people should be able to spend more, spend less. It's not about, you know, trying to level the playing field. I think it's just trying to dilute it so it's just not so outrageously, you know, ludicrous that we have such extremes, and I think it's got a good chance of doing that.
Right, we have time for one more question, so make it a good one.
No pressure. What's our view on loan signings? We seem to have kind of moved away, and then we've got a few more in this year. Is there a sweet spot in the number of loan players? And maybe to ask that, when we play a team like Chelsea next week and we beat them, will there be an opportunity to attract loan players going forward? Is that part of the? Is that an opportunity?
I think it's a really nuanced answer I've got to give you. There'll always be a place for loan players. Just depends on. So I think the transfer window almost was like two different windows for us. It was almost like a pre-Jovan and a post-Jovan. We weren't expecting to sell Jovan in this window. When that materialised, it was the right thing for the football club, and then we had an opportunity to reinvest in some assets that the club allowed us to do. And then at the end of the window, we needed to add some depth to the group, and we thought the best way of doing that in the context of the rest of the group was with loan players. The Chelsea situation is like, obviously they've got a first team squad of like circa 30-35 players, so whoever turns up here next Tuesday, they're going to be senior players. Maybe it's a better example to look at the Man United under 21 team that might come the week after, and it'll be really challenging for a lot of those players to get in our team. So that's the conundrum for us, is the very best ones are on crazy wages, young players, and quite often now first loan might even be into the Championship or abroad. So the landscape of 5-6 years ago of Morgan Rogers, Brennan Johnson has changed, but we have to keep our eyes open for opportunities all the time. So maybe a couple of years ago, Joe Taylor, Alex Mitchell were not the archetypal, typical type of loan that we'd had previously, but both contributed for a period of time. I guess the big answer to your question is, for stability and long-term development of the club, better that we own our own assets than develop someone else's. But when there's gaps in the squad and we can find the solutions in the loan market, always got eyes open to those opportunities.
I think just one other quick thing to add from the business side of things, but football has massively changed in the last 4 or 5 years when you start talking about PSR and other things. So, you know, back in the day of Brennan and Morgan, and, you know, I won't tell you the wage contributions that we paid, but the deal clincher was, what are we going to do as a football club to develop that player? With the way that things are now wound at the top of football, like the large sums of money that those players are on, contribution over the last 2-3 years has now become a massive factor, because those clubs, you know, there's an accountant somewhere within there saying, well, the sporting decision might be this, but actually the financial decision needs to look like this, and it's imperative that they do that. So, like, loans, let's call them the Brennan Morgan era, compared to loans now, it's actually a completely different system, a completely different conundrum, and a completely different sell. But, you know, to you know, everybody in this room respectfully, you know, loans are loans, and the whole thing's completely changed. So it's not just what we want to do, it's also what the football world is doing and how that fits within our model, and ultimately how we're going to put a team out that's not just the best team to win and get 3 points, but equally has some longevity in terms of long-term development and assets. So it's not just our behaviour, it's also what goes on in the football world that's probably important to take context of.
Well, I think, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's warm in here, isn't it? We should thank our panel up here, of course, Liam, Clive, Michael, and our warm-up man this evening, who did a very good job, I thought, Mr. Jess.